technological struggles just keep on going, eh?
Oh, you're back. Everyone's like, the CIA got him, the FBI got him, and it's like, oh, in Canada it's actually called CSIS. So yeah, CSIS took him down.
It's kind of like a mic drop, right? Like I dropped this big line. I'm like, I'm done, guys. That's it. I said my point. Peace, everyone. And for those of you who are all very confused right now, no, I am not Jagmeet Singh, but I am his unofficial stunt double.
Do you get that a lot? Is that
so
normally?
Can't make it out that it's. Yeah, I get it all the time. It's a pretty common thing because, like, I guess, like, you know, we're similar height, we tie a similar turban, and it's like I actually give people a lot of people leeway with it because even Punjabi people will get us confused.
Really?
So it's like it's not just like a non-Punjabi thing. It's like legitimately people in my own community will be like, "Oh, hey, Jagmeet Singh." I'm like, "No, I'm not his brother." They're like, "Yes, you are Jagmeet Singh." I'm like, "No, I'm a different person." Like, "No, I don't believe you. Actually, you are him." And it's like a long process of trying to explain who I am.
I don't think I'd have the gall or the confidence to say that to anyone. Like, just to be like, no, you are who I say you are. Like, to say the least.
It was like an elderly, like a sick gentleman, and he was just like, he was so resolute, and is like, you are him, and anything outside of that worldview is not possible right now. So I'm just going to carry on thinking you're Jagmeet.
So to everyone in the chat who's asking, he's actually his brother. So people are like, wait, are they related? I was like, yes, they're brothers. They're adorable brothers. How's life? How's fatherhood treating you?
We are. I'm the younger brother, the cooler brother. Yes, for those viewers out there, I am a new father. My daughter actually has her one month. I guess, what is it, like? Thing we recognize, like, it's not her birthday, but we always, every time it's 1 week. It's her 1 week since being born. Her 1 month, her first 1 month is today. So we're very excited.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've been following your TikToks and your Instagrams. They're always the cutest little. Yeah. Cutest little take your daughter to work things and stuff like that. I don't think everyone knows because everyone was like, "Oh, Lance,
sweat right now."
Everyone's like, "Lance, are you nervous?" and stuff. I was like, "Y'all don't know. We chatted already. We chatted last week. It was awesome. We talked for like an hour. It was really cozy.
It was fantastic, man. Lance, you're a great dude. You got a really good vibe, and I'm excited to be here.
Oh man, do you want to give everyone a quick introduction to yourself? Who you are, what you do?
Yeah. So outside of being an unofficial stunt double, which is something I pride very, very strongly. I am the MPP in Brampton East in Ontario for the NDP. It's so in BC, or for folks outside of Ontario, you call them MLAs, members of the Legislative Assembly, or in America, for American folks, it's kind of like being a part of your state Senate or your state Congress. So I'm the equivalent of that in Ontario. I'm part of the opposition, and I represent actually the seat that my brother used to represent before he got elected in leadership, and now went over to your side of the country and is in BC.
Was your brother, did he always have ambitions of becoming the prime minister, or did he just kind of fall into that?
Yo, the story of my brother is actually a really, really humble one. It's super wild. So my brother is like, we went through some tough times. Our life is out there. Our story is out there. My dad was someone who struggled really badly with addiction. And so we went through some really tough economic times, and we kind of saw it all. Like, we saw, one state of our life where we were pretty comfortable, and one state of life when we had nothing. And my brother really wanted to fight always. Like, he had this like thing of social justice in his heart. He always wanted to fight for a better, better world and better country. But after we had gone through such a stressful period, he was really comfortable and happy being a lawyer. And the only thing that motivated him was myself and my friend Amneet. And we both really pushed him because we said, listen, you always cared about fighting for people. You want to make a better country, a better community, better province. This is the best way to do it. So he did not actually have those ambitions. He had ambitions to help people, but he was never like a politically minded dude. It actually took us months of convincing, like legitimately months, to convince him. And the only thing that got him ever to accept the next challenge was the argument that this will help make lives better and make people, live in a more just and fair world.
Oh, so it's like, it's what people usually like dream about in terms of politicians, but I never thought it was actually real.
Yeah, it's like a legitimately real thing, and we have the book documents it pretty accurately, actually, of the process. And it was like my one friend was like good cop, and I was bad cop. So my one friend underneath would be like, you speak French, you speak well, you advocate for people, etc. You'd be great for this position. I was like, Jimmy, you have to do it. The world depends on it. You got to fight for justice. And he's like, he's like, we had both those perspectives.
The world depends on it. It's like a Marvel movie.
So awesome. It was Marvel, man. We're actually science fiction and fantasy nerds. So I like pulled every like reference to the Marvel universe, science fiction universe. I was like pulling it all up. Like, you got to be the one.
And how about you? How did you get involved? Because were you politically minded as well?
Yeah. So our roots were in, and always have been in activism. We're always involved in grassroots activism. We always want to. We're really involved in youth activism, kind of, and our origins of how we got involved. And it was myself and my buddy who I keep on referencing, Amneet. I keep on pointing to as if he's beside me. He's not beside me. He's actually in Ottawa right now. And so we got involved in youth organizing. And through that process, we started advocating for a lot of issues around social justice, human rights, a variety of things. And I was always inclined on those issues, like something I always really cared about, but I never knew what was the best avenue to advance it. So when I saw my brother get involved in politics, it was really impactful, it was really important, and I saw the impact it could have. And when he left to run for leadership, I wanted to make sure that seat, that was the first, it was like a breakthrough seat. It was the first NDP seat to turn NDP in the history of the Peel region ever, like whether federally or provincially, it's just the first NDP seat. So it was a very historic seat for us. And so we wanted to continue that tradition of fighting for people and having a strong representative. So my brother actually turned to me being like, yo, you did it to me, I'm going to do it to you. You got to run now and fill that gap.
Damn, that's cool. What have you thought about it? Like, dude, I've people always asking, like, have you ever had like an interest in politics? And I'm like, no. Like, it looks to me like such a dark, dirty world.
Yeah, it's like anything in life. It can be dark and dirty, or it can be hopeful and beautiful. And the way I look at it always is, you have this opportunity, you have a platform to speak truth to power, right? You have a platform to hopefully get into a position of power to affect change. And especially like the context in which we came out of in Brampton, we had all these elected officials who basically, whatever government was in power, that would be the elected official in Brampton. So basically you'd be like struggling, life would be unaffordable, hospitals are not getting the funding they need, or you don't have enough hospitals, and your elected officials would be like, we are doing the best for your communities. This is what you need, while people are struggling. So when we had Jagmeet win for the first time in 2011, he was the first opposition voice in Brampton ever. And he was like, yo, life is not affordable. Healthcare is messed up. Auto insurance rates are, through the roof, or like you're just hitting all these different equity issues. And that was for the first time people were like, wow, we can actually dream for better. We can live in a better way. We can live in a more just way. We can live in a fairer way. And then that led to our most recent breakthrough provincially, where we have 3 out of the 5 seats provincially are now NDP. So it's allowed us to create a lot of amazing organizing and mobilization in Brampton. So it's been beautiful.
Can you explain to viewers who are in the States or other countries what like having 3 of the 5 seats means?
Yeah, so the way it is like this. So it's like the new Westminster system, the system that has been in sent around the world as per British colonialism. We have a system in place where to form government, you have to have a majority amount of seats to have a majority government, or the most amount of seats to form a minority government. And so every city or area or district is broken up into different electoral districts. In Brampton, we call them ridings. So we have 5 ridings in Brampton. And of those 5 seats provincially, them are NDP and 2 of them are to the Conservatives.
Okay.
How's that for a really quick and succinct little history?
Yeah, no, that was concise.
I'm proud of myself right now. I'm like, yo, I got that.
I know we talked a little bit about the order in which we were going to talk about things, so I was going to stick to that a bit, and I know it's kind of a dark tone to start this conversation with, but I think it's an important one, especially with the Breonna Taylor verdict just taking place. Can you give a bit of a rundown to basically the issue of police brutality and the overreach of the police force in Canada, and how that relates to people in the US who are experiencing the same thing?
Yeah, it is. Despite it being a tough issue, it's a really important issue, and it's an issue that's on the minds of everyone across the world. and it's something that we need to talk about. So it's important to recognize that across North America, across the world, we have systemic anti-Black racism, systemic racism in policing. And the impact of it is real. The impact is, we have Black and brown folks who are being killed. I talk about a story in a neighborhood just next to the riding that I represent, where we had a situation of a 62-year-old man who's going through a mental health crisis. He was in his house alone. And in that process, his family, he started going through an episode. His family called paramedics for assistance. When the police showed up, they shot and killed him while he was alone in his own home.
Jesus.
He wasn't a threat to anyone. We have another situation in Brampton where we have, it's crazy, right? And then we have, and months afterwards, the special investigation unit hasn't charged. Actually, the officer hasn't answered any questions, and there's this whole issue around, no one being held to account. Earlier this year, a Black man in Brampton, same situation, went through a mental health episode. The family calls for help. Police show up. He gets shot and killed alone in his own home. We have so many situations here in Canada, across the world, of Floyd, of Breonna Taylor. We have all these situations of injustice, and it's telling us something really. We have to really rethink how we're approaching this whole situation of policing. And we can't have police show up when there's mental health crises. We can't have a society where we're militarizing police with legitimately military-style weaponry. We need to be investing in community initiatives and mental health response to healthcare responses, a healthcare response to healthcare issues, not a police response. We need to rethink how we're doing this whole situation around policing. I need to recognize the institutional racism and colonialism that is a part of our system right now.
And to the average person who's, maybe feeling helpless, what exactly can they do towards achieving those goals?
They say it, and you got to vote, right? Like it's one of the most impactful ways. Like you can actually vote in. Like this whole discussion is happening in America right now for American folks. Like you can actually vote in elected officials who will advance this kind of policy, where we're going to make sure that there's not going to be this huge disparity in funding, where police are getting all the funding and then community initiatives are not getting the kind of support that they need. There's not going to be disparity in approach to policing. So your vote, powerful things that can actually create change. And so that's one way about it. And then shout out to all these amazing community organizations that are advocating.
Okay, so let me go right back to the point we were talking on. So for people who hear things like, obviously, I'm very big on saying that we should defund the police and then reallocate that money into, say, social programs. Is that the messaging coming out of the NDP right now?
What we're saying really, really clearly from the NDP, and what I'm saying too, is that it's wrong when you have this historic imbalance in funding. And it's wrong that we have police that are investing in militarizing their police forces when they should be looking at alternative measures and in often alternative first responders to different situations. So, I'm 100% recognize that there's this huge imbalance, and we need to rectify it by putting into community initiatives, by putting funding into different approaches. We have to rethink how we are policing folks, and having guns and police showing up time and time again to racialized folks who are going through any sort of either mental health episode or any episode and resulting in being shot and killed is not a solution. We need to address that.
And what's the pathway that the NDP is going to be taking towards that or achieving those goals?
Yeah, so we're actually, this is a live conversation that we had provincially, and I'm really proud of the fact that we consulted and we connect with a lot of different community organizations, and we came up with this whole policy on it, where we legitimately recognize the institutional racism and colonialism, and then we started saying, what are the immediate steps we're going to do? Those steps are immediately ending militarization of police, immediately making sure that there's a healthcare response to healthcare crises with police, making sure that police oversight actually is able to carry out police oversight and not be in the situation we are in Ontario right now, where the SIU rarely pursues justice in situations where police are involved in shootings or killings.
Is there a problem in Canada with police unions like there is in the US?
I don't know enough about that specific issue around the union aspect of it, but I can say we do have a real issue with our special investigation unit. We have a real issue with militarization of police. We have a real issue with people who are going through mental health issues being responded by cops with their guns drawn. these are real issues across the board. I'm not too sure about the structural impact on it.
What's like when it comes to mental health checks? Because I know there's a huge problem in my province, BC, with Indigenous people getting like mental health awareness checks and just getting killed. Is there a specific reason why it's always the police attending those calls? Like, is that just because people think immediately to call the cops when they hear noise or they think of something like that? There's no other way of reaching out.
It's a wild situation, right? Like, I'm going to go back to that example of Ajaz Chowdhury. The family legitimately didn't even call the cops. They called the paramedics. And because he in his episode, because of the situation around it, protocol, whatever it is, cops end up showing up. And when the police showed up, the result is they then took a very, there's a video of it. It's a video that like pulls my heartstrings. It makes me feel upset and sad of them, busting in the door and shooting him down as he was alone in his own apartment. And that's why I think there is a structural issue here. The structural issue being that we have to rethink policing. We can't have police show up when we have someone in a mental health crisis. You need to have healthcare response. You need to have, we have to rethink our whole approach to this context. And it involves having different people act in different ways, right? Police are not going to be in the best position to respond to someone who's in a mental health crisis. You need you need a healthcare worker. And so that's I think part of the process, rethinking how we're approaching situation where people are in crises.
Do you think there'd be a big public pushback if you were, say, to reallocate a whole bunch of police budget into social programs and stuff like that? Or do you think we're ready? Like, are we at a time where you'd be able to push through legislation like that?
Well, we're pretty clear on it in the paper we put forward, right? Like, if there's money going towards militarizing police, that money should go to community initiatives. If there's a huge imbalance in how we've historically funded different social services, we need to start rethinking of funding those preventative services, making sure we have a healthcare person to respond to someone who's in crisis and make sure they get the correct amount of funding. So I think people recognize that there's a problem here and that we need to rethink and take a different approach to something that's clearly broken.
Mm-hmm. I know we're going to talk about the Fords down the road in this conversation, but is there a big pushback from the Doug Ford and the more right wing side of politics in Ontario against people trying to do police reform?
I think this is the split that you have often politically, right? Where some people are going to look at an issue and say, you're going to have a neighborhood that's experiencing more crime, and you have one individual who's going to look at it and say, we need more police to ensure that crime doesn't happen. Or you're going to have a response that I believe in, that progressives believe in, that if you address the roots of crime, which are often poverty, access to justice, access to education, access towards being able to go to a community center in your community that has services that are vibrant and dynamic, those are ways that you're going to actually address reducing crime. And so that's something that I believe in, that we believe in, and other folks think that the way to address crime is through over policing of communities. And we know that statistically these things don't work, that they actually don't reduce the amount of crime. If you want to create a more just society, if you want to create a more fair and safe society, you need to create an economically just society. You need to create an economically balanced society. That's how you're going to actually address the roots of crime.
What are the other questions I wanted to ask you in relation to funding? As you just said, you want to address the systemic issues that cause crime, right? And I'm sure you know as well as I do that the biggest precursor to crime happens to be poverty. How exactly are you going to address issues of that nature? Because that's such a hugely complicated thing to try and tackle.
Yeah, that's, and like looking at how we tackle poverty is something that it's a really complex issue. And for me to think that I can succinctly communicate it right now would not be doing justice to how grave an issue this is. But I would say this: societies that have strong healthcare, where people are able to access well-funded and hospitals that have, and a healthcare system across the board that has the ability to provide the best of care. Societies that have affordable and accessible transportation. Societies that have education that is accessible by all. We have societies that have jobs that are located in their communities. These are ways, at a minimum, at a first step, that we can start addressing poverty. when you have those pillars of a society, right? That's why it's, progressives will be fighting for public transportation, because they know that if someone is in a low-income area and they need to get to a place of employment, the faster they can do so, the better they can do so, the better for the quality of life, their employment, etc. Right? Funding healthcare, people who are healthier, who have access to healthcare, are going to be once they're if they are feeling ill, or if they get sick, they're not going to be drawn below into the line of poverty, because they can be held healthy and be able to access the support they need and get back on their feet. People that have the ability to access education, like these are just some of the ways we can do so. There's more. We have to think about investing in, I always think of all these amazing community initiatives that can help keep people, afloat and keep them engaged, or get them going from one industry to another industry if the industries are impacted. Like, we have to effectively think of investing in people, communities, as ways to fight poverty.
What about the idea of implementing, and I know this is kind of like almost becoming part of the discourse now, a UBI program?
Yeah, so I hear a lot about UBI, and I think it's super interesting. And I think there's two things that I have in mind on that. UBI is very, very important, but also we have to equally think about funding the services. Like, both the conversation is not separate; they have to be one and the same. Because sometimes when I hear like folks like Elon Musk talking about UBI, I get nervous, because I'm thinking, what is his mentality? Is he going to be give people UBI and take away all their services, right? So like, you have to have both of those conversations happening concurrently, and we can never forget about the need that through having strong and publicly funded public services, we can create a lot of equity in our community, a lot of equality in our communities. And UBI is something I'm looking into. I'm thinking about a lot, but it's something I need to look into a little bit more about.
I think less Elon Musk and probably more Andrew Yang, because Andrew Yang was the one that put it in the public consciousness, but he was also kind of saying that this can exist, but at the same time, we want to erode other social safety nets as a way of paying for it in kind of like a trade, which I guess would relate to what you're saying. Like, I agree with you. That's not what you want to do.
Yeah, and that's what gets me nervous when I hear certain people talking about UBI in that context. So it has the conversation UBI has to be one in which it's happening at the same time as we're talking about strengthening it and expanding public services.
And don't worry, it's not a lefty interview without scuffed audio and scuffed video. So you're authentic, all right?
There we go. Yeah, right. You can't script all these technical issues right now, right?
No, of course not. No, I got to stay authentic.
Yeah.
One of the other questions I wanted to ask you in relation to all that is that, how do you see things moving forward in Canada when it comes to the gross inequality of wealth? Because that seems to just be getting out of control. And I know, like, you've had an official policy about taxing the rich and taxing them more, but what's to be done, I guess, would be a big question there.
Yeah, I'm actually just pulling up the exact number, because I just tweeted about it recently, and it's something that went just like the gross disparity. So like, the fact that 20 people grew their wealth by 37 billion in Canada during the pandemic, while 1.8 million people lost their jobs.
Good. This is fine.
Are we good?
Oh no, sorry, I'm just being facetious. I'm saying, like, yeah, this is I'm doing that dog meme with the dog on fire. Yeah, I'm like, this is fine. Yeah, this is good. This is good. Sorry, I shouldn't make those with the I know, with the internet connection be what it is. Sorry.
Oh man, did we break it? Yeah. So like, when I look at that, I see, like, yeah, this is something so problematic, that billionaires are growing their wealth at a time where the world is talking about economic recession, a she-cession, as they're talking about, because of a huge unemployment that's just disproportionately impacting women, people of color. So there is something really, really wrong with this kind of society that's resulting in this huge disparity. What is the solution? Yeah, often it is ensuring that those who clearly have the ability to give more are giving that. And also, it's understanding that, like, if you want to create a society, I once was having a conversation with an individual who's breaking it down like this. Like, even he's a person of a decent means, and we're talking about taxes together, and he's like, yeah, he's like, I could move to America and I could make more money, but then I wouldn't live in a society that would have healthcare, that would have people being able to access education. My kids or my kids' friends can go to the same university. Like he looked at the fact that Canada, though we still have a lot of work to do, still has, compared to other countries, some degree of, or a better degree of equity and access to different things as an asset. He looked at that as, this is better for me, for my family, for my life, for me being able to go to the store because, I live in a society where, we can all access different things together. He looked at it as a positive thing. So I think that when we talk about, taxation, yeah, we have to tax those who are in a position to give more, and we have to understand that's a contract of living in a balanced and safe society.
And is there ways to increase that in Canada? Because right now the tax rate, even for the uber wealthy, I think is only at like 27% or something. Like I would assume we could make a lot higher. It was a lot higher around the the Great Depression, for example.
Totally, and that's also, you see the NDP often campaigning to say, and often like the numbers are like I might be like a bit off on this, but it was like something like a 1% increase for every dollar made after 20 million or something like that in the last federal election. That was what the NDP had proposed, and that would have funded all these community initiatives, all these access to education, universities that were being proposed from a public spending perspective into public services would have been funded in part by a tax increase, which you think when you kind of hear about it, it's like nominal for someone who has that kind of wealth. So we're talking about things that are really reasonable. Like this is things that should happen. These are policies that should be in place, and they have been in place previously. Rolling Stones came out with this really great article about taxation in America and how exactly as you're describing, like post-Depression era, you had a higher taxation rate, and you had the ability of that money to build infrastructure, communities, build up America, that to the economic engine that it has become, and that is now often, that article they're saying is it's eroding because of the lack of spending and the lack of taxation and revenue to build up a society.
I know we've been talking about some heavy subjects, but I also wanted to bring this up because I saw the video footage the other day of your brother Jagmeet getting accosted on the street by a far right reactionary, and that kind of that was a bit of a harrowing thing for me to see, because I don't think people maybe outside of Canada realize that this is the leader of a major political party getting threatened on the street by like a far right reactionary. But that's just like, I'm sure he would be the first one to tell you, kind of like business as usual for being, like a visible minority in a position of power in this country. How have you and your brother been dealing with that as you've been rising to prominence in the political sphere? Because you guys are some of the most prominent political figures in Canada in that realm. And also, how are you dealing with just what seems to be the observable rise of the far right in this country as well?
Yeah, so I talked to my brother after that had happened, and it's a terrible thing, right? Like the fact that a leader of a federal party is walking around and getting accosted in a way that's pretty like, I'm going to arrest you. Do you want to get arrested? Let's dance afterwards. Pretty provocative things the guy was saying. And the reality is my brother, is someone who is reflecting on it, and me knowing him growing up, like, he when he was young, he would be followed like that and also have his turban ripped off as in a street fight. So like he's been through a lot worse. That's like, probably part of the reason why he walks with so much poise and so much confidence in these kind of circumstances, because he's been through a lot worse. And that's the sad reality of a lot of racialized people, how they live. But when I talked to him about it, he goes, for me, he's like, I've been through this. I've been through when I was young. And he's like, he has the privilege through, his confidence and how he holds himself, and frankly, his martial arts training, to feel not vulnerable in that kind of circumstance, right? But what he really said to me that really took me back is, what about the person who doesn't have the privilege that I do? What about the person who is accosted in the same way that happens every day across the world and here in Canada in a racist fashion, that doesn't have that same privilege?
Yeah.
And that's what every time he has these circumstances, he thinks about those other individuals who are not in that same position, who don't have that ability to walk confidently in that situation, because you shouldn't have to. Often we applaud him, like when he was told to cut his turban off, or he was yelled at during his leadership by being told he's part of Muslim Brotherhood, and he always acts with such calm and poise. The reality is he shouldn't have to. But beyond that, it's something to say that, yeah, okay, he's able to act in that responsive in a poised way. But think of those who can't, and how can we build a society where no one has to be threatened and subjugated in that kind of way? And that's why all those interactions do is make him even more committed to building a more just Canada, because often the rise of right-wing extremism is emboldened by economic inequality. Economic inequality often creates this environment where people start saying, oh, I'm struggling. It's not because of how my society is structured. It's not because of where the money's going and the fact that 20 people are getting $37 billion while 1.8 million people are out of a job. It's that new Canadian, it's that immigrant, it's that person of color, it's that Black Indigenous individual who's resulting in me being in a position of scarcity. And that's why economic equality is such a powerful engine to creating a more balanced society and a safer one.
Is there a direct correlation between that? Is there is more like disparity between like hierarchies and social classes? There seems to be a rise of prominence within the far right. Can that actually be like tracked down?
Yeah, I don't have like studies or anything to pull from, but I would say generally what we see, when we look at my understanding of history, is that when you have societies, often like when does fascism come in place? Often when communities, there's people who are struggling, and there's nations who are struggling, and there's people who are in economically desperate situations, and often they scapegoat a vulnerable community as a way of saying, that is the root of your issues, not the gross economic disparity. So we see that happening around the world, and I see economic justice as one of the most important ways of creating racial justice.
Did you drop your camera? Oh,
the technological struggles just keep on going, eh?
Oh, you're back. Everyone's like, the CIA got him, the FBI got him, and it's like, oh, in Canada it's actually called CSIS. So yeah, CSIS took him down.
It's kind of like a mic drop, right? Like I dropped this big line. I'm like, I'm done, guys. That's it. I said my point. Peace, everyone.
Okay, so you know how you're asking about like, hey, have your guests ever done this or that? No one has ever done that before. So you would have been the first. Really? Just like grab the webcam and drop it like a mic drop. That's hilarious.
That actually happened. I got too excited and I knocked my camera down. And I was like, oh man, this is going from technical issues to physical issues, right? Like I'm struggling on angles right now.
Oh, that's funny. All right, well, why don't I use the last remaining time we have just to quickly talk about a little bit about the potential Canadian election that I guess just got thwarted, and then you can talk about how you're going to destroy Doug Ford in the marketplace of ideas.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start with federal, provincial?
Yeah, sure. How about, federal doesn't really matter anymore because it seems like your brother just saved us from a vote of no confidence. So maybe you could explain that.
Yeah, so like once again, I always give it with the caveat that I am a provincial representative. So like, despite the fact I'm super close to my brother, I'm not like, up to date on every single specific policy that comes forward. But the big thing just to talk about, like, it ties into our earlier conversation as well, right? We have a circumstance in which, in a context of COVID, we were put in a position where millions of Canadians were in an economically distressed position. They're struggling and continue to struggle. And what you saw from the Liberals is the same thing generally you see from Liberals and Conservatives, where they're actually not putting immediately in place policies to help people out. They're always trying to do the bare minimum or not help people out. And Jagmeet came forward, and the NDP just really, every single win we got was because the NDP pushing and fighting for everyday folks, fighting for people to make sure that in a time that's desperate, like right now, they get some kind of support. And so from CERB being $2,000, from the support for students to the payroll support up to 75%, to even right now, the condition of 2 weeks paid sick leave. These are all things that were fought hard by the NDP, fought hard by progressives. And that's the kind of wins. That's what you get when people vote in NDP. They get in people who are going to fight for you and fight to make sure you get the support you need. So I'm proud. I'm proud of the fact that he put forth that that condition, and the fact that we're getting that is historic. Like, this is something that is legitimately going to help people out, especially in the context of COVID-19. But outside of that, that's what folks deserve. They deserve in a year to have that kind of support to be able to take time off if they're unwell.
I mean, I like a lot of people were astounded when I announced that, and they were like, wait, you don't have paid worker leave in Canada? And I was like, I don't think we have it on the federal level. At least this is the first time we will now. So now we have guaranteed 10-day paid worker leave for all Canadians.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. I was hoping for a correction or you to be like, oh, no, that's not true or something. But that is what happened.
No, 2 weeks. 2 weeks is my understanding. Yeah. 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yes, two and like 10 days. The way you can position is between the weekends would be 2 weeks, right?
All right, and now tell me how you're going to crush Doug Ford in the marketplace of ideas.
Yeah. So like this is the thing about what's happening in Ontario. So just today, I don't know if you saw the news or not about it, but like we have 700 cases of COVID-19 right now hitting Ontario. And the reality is that you have a conservative government that didn't actually invest in the things that we needed to do to A, prevent this, and B, ensure that people have supports if they are affected by COVID-19. So like one of the big things that we've been fighting for seems so reasonable, but it's crazy to me that it has yet to be something that's accepted by the conservatives, is that in a context of COVID-19, you need to have a class size cap. You need 15 kids in a class size in a classroom, because otherwise you can't social distance. The ability to spread COVID-19 becomes exacerbated. And this is something that healthcare professionals are saying. This is how you fight COVID-19 in the schools, is you make sure there's space. Conservatives haven't accepted that. They haven't agreed with that. When we talk about support for small businesses or people who fall through the cracks of CERB, we had no support from the provincial government, from the Conservatives. They never put anything forward. And now, as we head into a second wave, those support systems are still not there. So ultimately, when you vote for the NDP, you vote for a party who's going to be fighting for you, fighting to make sure that schools are staffed appropriately, so we can have 15 kids in a classroom in a way that's safe. They're going to fight to make sure that supports are coming from the province, because right now Doug Ford's all been just relying on federal money. Provincially, he hasn't put out the money that you folks have provincially in BC, where you have support for small businesses or support for individuals who can't access CERB. We had all these provincial programs that we didn't have provincially here in Ontario. So we're saying from the NDP, when you elect us, you elect in a party that's going to fight for you and fight to make sure your lives are better.
I'm like a rose-blooded socialist, and I'm really big into worker control of the means of production, which the best form of that I can see viably in Canada is to have worker cooperatives and also, of course, strong unions. That's kind of your guys' bread and butter, right? Is both unionization, and I don't know what your opinions are on worker co-ops, but I really want to hear it.
Yeah, like all these, like, so unions, the labor movement. We live in a society where we take for granted often 40-hour work weeks, which is also being eroded, but 40-hour work weeks and the ability to have fair bargaining with employers and the benefits of, I always see that T-shirt that you always, I find so inspiring. Like, the labor movement fought for 8 hours work, 8 hours sleep, 8 hours rest, like those quintessential union shirts. And or play, I think it is what it is. So yeah, these are really important. And worker cooperatives, 100%. Anything that is making a process more accessible, more democratic, more linear, I think these are really great, equitable ways of organizing communities and organizing workplaces. And they're going to create more justice. And often, I think we're hearing more and more innovation, more better output, because when people are part of the means of production, yeah, they're gonna feel more vested in the output that they create, right? They're going to feel a part of it.
Yeah, they have skin in the game
because they are part of it. They have skin in the game. They are part of it, right? So yeah, I think anything like around those from strong unions to strong, just like rethinking how, same way we have to rethink policing, we have to rethink how we function right now in the current context in our current economy, and how we have to make sure that workers' rights are being strengthened and expanded, not being eroded, because it's happening here in Canada as well, where there's a direct correlation between decrease in unionization, lack of job stability, temporary precarious work, and how all those factors lead to unhealthy, people who are more unhealthy, often in poverty, mentally, physically unwell. Like there's so many determinants of health that are connected to strong, stable work.
I know we talked a little bit ahead of time on all the topics we discussed, and you kind of agreed to go down the darkest rabbit holes of conversation with me during the course of this. So I figured for the last one, I'd give you a softball if you're okay.
Yo, I really enjoyed this though. Honestly, the biggest thing is the technical issues is I want to apologize for that on my end. I wish it was a bit smoother on my side. But this has been a great conversation, and you've been asking really fair and honestly fun questions to have a conversation about.
Well, I mean, you say that now, but wait until this next one comes. You're kind of on the verge of becoming a TikTok superstar. I see that your numbers you're blowing up. Do you ever get the temptation just to ride that TikTok life into the mainstream?
just go all the way. Just be like, all right, guys.
Yeah, just become a TikTok star. Yeah, you could do it. You have the numbers, man.
I will not be. I'm gonna pursue this as my life's passion. You know what it is, man? This is the big thing about social media, and this is what I believe in. I believe in it really passionately, actually. As progressives and as politicians and as people who care about creating a better world, you have to go where people are at, right? And you can't be you can't be someone who's not malleable, who's not able to react to how the world is developing. So I look at any sort of social media means or social media platform as a way to connect with folks. So like now that you put me on Discord and Twitch, like I'm thinking about this because that's how we can connect with people, and that's the future, right? People, especially in this COVID context, where it's harder to have gatherings, and often you're prohibited from having gatherings, rightly so. Then you have to be able to respond with technology and social media. So I look at it all as as much as I do take your kid to work day, little videos and stuff. I also always try to have a strong social justice and progressive lens into the work I'm putting out there, because to me these are tools to advance a greater issue of communicating around how to create a more just and equal society.
Why you got to turn my garbage question into something poignant that's going to resonate with other people?
That's the goal. That's what I say.
You're like, I'm doing it right now in real time on the internet.
That's what it is. And I clip this, and I'm going to clip this and put this on TikTok.
Nice.
And then you're creating content, cross platforms. It's great.
Oh, I love it. Honestly, hey, as scuffed as everything was, it was like a genuinely delightful conversation. I'd love to do it again. We could do it again, and we could make sure that things are nice and solidified, and we can go down different rabbit holes if you'd like.
Yo, I'm gonna get like the biggest processing, invest in some really powerful computer, so I never have this issue, because I think my I'm on the Chromebook. And I feel like the Chromebook just sometimes doesn't have the engine for this or something, because
isn't that the one that's just it's basically just a web browser, and that's like it?
Oh, it's pretty solid. It's kind of like a tablet. It's like a tablet that you add a laptop to, and it's generally been good for me in life. But now I realize that the power of Discord and Twitch requires a bigger processing structure. So I'm going to bring in a better computer, and for sure I owe you another one, man, with all the technical glitches this time. It's so funny because we talked before, and we're like, all right, cool, everything's good. I'm like, is the internet good in this room? Like, yeah, it's solid. And
for like an hour and like a half or something. It was
literally in the next room. I'm like, was this good? Like, yeah, man, we're good technology. The connection's good, no issues. Then it comes to the big day, and everything that can go wrong went wrong.
No, and honestly, I really appreciate it. I know you're super busy right now, especially with all this election stuff and everything coming up. So I do really appreciate you taking the time to talk to all of us.
I appreciate you for the work you're doing, for this conversation, and for this platform, man. This is a great conversation. I'm happy to do it again, and I hope the viewers liked it, man. I didn't open up the side screen, but I hope we got a lot of hearts and thumbs ups on this.
Hey, we want to mutual aid you to get some eyeballs on your work. So if you have a leftist YouTube channel or Twitch stream or something you want us to advertise, just send us a 20 to 30 second ad using the forums at weareserfs.com. We'll do our best to help you out. And please submit once per channel.
To our God, I'm Wrath. We pray at your altar of greatness. To our monarch, Thomas Bone, you are the light that guides our path. To our lords, Jeffrey Lamb, Trevor R., Stephen, Ninetails Cosmic Fox, Hans Josephine, and Poppy Nelson, we bow meekly for your pleasure. To our Knights of the Round Table, Josh Mickelson, Dylan Byth, Alexander Thaler, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, Todd Lajeunesse, Clement Chetska, Skybear Games, Moss Beast, Political Puppy, Ali Menthol, Jimmy Bignuts, Alan R., Andreas Chitoro, Good Poon Hates Cops, That's Solid Poon Then, Dr. Zayas, Joppy, Radiclu, Violent Orchard, and Sophie Baby, we salute you. And to our many merchants and farmers, thank you. Fuck you, Lance.